Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here with me. I'm going to be talking today about 13 standalone novels that I really think you should read. And I know 13 seems like a very random, arbitrary number. It really is. I just kind of pulled these off the top of my head. And these aren't the only standalone novels that I've read. I've read a lot of standalone novels, but I did have a couple of rules going into this that I thought would make this more unique than some of the videos I typically do. So one of those rules is it can't include any of my favorite authors. That was hard, guys. That was really hard because you know my favorite author is Neil Gaiman, and most of his books are standalones, and I've enjoyed every single one of his books, really. So, to not mention a Neil Gaiman book on this list was really tough, but I hunkered down and found plenty of other great options besides Neil Gaiman. But, oh, you want down already? Okay. But I do want you to read Neil Gaiman. Don't take that as I don't want you to read Neil Gaiman. I do. The other rule is that the standalone book cannot be a collection. It can't be a collection of short stories. The books I'm going to talk to you about today are full novels or novellas. But as with all my videos, I do have an honorable mention, okay? So, my honorable mention is a self-promotion, okay? If you are looking for a standalone novel, I would really appreciate it if you checked out Talondore's Guest. It is a standalone novel. It has some loose connections to other books that I will write in the future, but it's completely standalone. Nothing else is necessary to read and enjoy my book. So I'm putting that out there. If you're interested, grab a copy of Talondore's Guest. You can find a link to where you can purchase it at my link tree, which is listed in the description below. So, yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, guys, so now that my self-promotion is done, I'm going to put on my eyes, just in case I need to read my list of books here, which I probably will on a few of these. The first book on this list is Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. This is a slice of life coming-of-age story with some slight supernatural elements to it. Robert McCammon is often compared to Stephen King in terms of his prose style and the types of stories he writes. A lot of his stories that he writes are reminiscent of Stephen King books, but he's got his own flavor and style, and I personally like his writing better than Stephen King. Now, I've only read Boy's Life. Okay, that's the only book I've read. I haven't read any other books by Robert McCammon, but Boy's Life was enough to convince me that I need to read more Robert McCammon. So, one of these days, I will be reading more, probably Swan Song. I'll probably check that one out. And he's got several others that seem very interesting to me. So, more to come on Robert McCammon. But if you have not read Boy's Life, you really are missing out. You should definitely check that book out. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I read this last year, and it's a very different, very unique book, very artsy. If you're into books that are not your standard format and expectation of content, I think you might really enjoy Piranesi. I liked it. I did not love it, but I feel like it's a book that I would grow to love as I reread it. So it is a book that I would like to reread in the future, and I think I could grow to love it more. I don't know, guys, it's just this weird off-the-wall little tale about a guy that wakes up in this large house with numerous vestibules, hundreds upon hundreds of vestibules and corridors, and surrounded by lakes and rivers and oceans on every side, and it's just so unique. I don't really know how to describe it well, but I definitely think you should check out Piranesi. So the next book on this list is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. This is my favorite Stephen King book. And granted, I've not read a lot of Stephen King. I've read the Dark Tower series. I've read It. I've read The Stand. Neither of those two books I really cared for. I did enjoy the Dark Tower. But Salem's Lot is just a perfect book for me. I love vampires. I love modern day retellings about vampires and stories that kind of allude to a fascination with Dracula. I just really, really ate Salem's Lot up. And it's one of Stephen King's shorter books, which by short I mean 600 pages. But Stephen King can write really good books in that short amount of space. Whereas his larger books tend to get a little bit overdone in terms of descriptions and backstories and stuff like that. But for me, Salem's Lot was just the perfect book, and I definitely would highly recommend that to anyone who is looking to experience Stephen King for the first time. I think it's a great book to start with. Okay? So we're going to move on to some of the physical books that I have here on my desk. I've got a stack here of books. And the first one on this stack is Blade Runner, or what it's actually originally titled as Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So this is a fantastic sci-fi novel, steampunk really. It's really more of a steampunk novel, and it is just fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the movie as well, and also of Blade Runner 2049. But this book is fantastic. So this is the book that inspired the movie Blade Runner, and it is just a classic of science fiction for a reason. You really need to check this out. All right, the next one we're moving on to here is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It masterfully tells the tale of a dystopian world where thinking for yourself as an individual is frowned upon, reading is frowned upon to the point that there are people going around burning books, and it's just, it is so good, guys. And this is another book that I really want to reread because I think I would get more out of it on a reread even. So Fahrenheit 451 is a classic of dystopian science fiction for a reason, an absolute must-read. All right, guys. So the next one on this list is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is such a great book. If you like pirates, if you like adventure, if you like coming-of-age stories, this is just so much fun. Pretty much everybody is familiar with the basics of the story. I don't think anybody would not know who Long John Silver is, and this is just a fantastic swashbuckling seafaring tale, and I can't recommend it enough. And just as a side note, if you enjoy a more adult take on pirates, there is a really great TV series called Black Sails, which is a prequel to Treasure Island. I'm just saying, it's fantastic. So pick up Treasure Island if you have not ever read it. I highly recommend it. All right, so we are moving on to The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is a magnificent tale of a truly despicable individual. Dorian Gray is one of those characters that you continue reading about throughout the whole book. You don't put it down, even though you might think you want to, because he is just such a hateful and despicable person. But the way Oscar Wilde writes Dorian Gray, especially the way he deals with this extremely narcissistic character, and the supernatural twists that he weaves into the story are just epic, guys. They really are. I can't recommend this book enough. This is another book where I want to reread it eventually, and I have no doubt I will pick up on things that I didn't catch before, and the ending could go two different ways. So I'm just so happy to recommend this book to anyone. You must read this book. All right, so we are moving on to Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. This book is the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I highly recommend both of these as standalones that should be read. But if you're just looking to wet your whistle on vampire mythology and vampire fiction, Carmilla is a great way to do it. I highly recommend it. So I didn't put Dracula on this list because, everybody knows Dracula, and I kind of wanted to hit on some more obscure books that not a lot of people talk about. Dracula is pretty much in the vernacular of standalone novels that are classics that everybody should read, so I didn't put it on here, but you saw I do own a copy. I love my copy of it, but I highly recommend Carmilla if you're looking to get into vampire fiction. All right? So, with that, we are moving on to The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. If you like a dark supernatural story with a very stark Lovecraftian feel to it, you want to pick up The Ballad of Black Tom. This is one of my favorite books. As soon as I saw this really nice copy of it, I had to grab it, and it was on sale even. I mean, who could beat that? And it's such a great book. Oh my goodness, guys. It follows a Blackstreet musician called Charles Thomas Tester, and it follows his descent into madness as he embraces servitude to the elder gods of Lovecraftian lore. It's just absolutely brilliant and amazing. So, there we go. The Ballad of Black Tom. And if you are looking to whet your taste buds on Clive Barker, I highly recommend The Thief of Always. This book was recommended to me a long time ago by a good friend of mine, and it didn't end up being the first book that I read from Clive Barker, but I think this is definitely a more approachable way to get into Clive Barker. It's more of a YA novel, but it's really unique and interesting. The prose is magnificent. The story is just a lot of fun and quirky and whimsical. And there's cats. I mean, come on, guys. It has cats in it. Why wouldn't you want to read this? I know, I wanted to read it because there were cats in it. And there were 3 cats, and they were adorable. So, anyway, okay, I'll stop gushing about the cats. Read The Thief of Always. All right, I'm going to talk next about Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is such a great science fiction novel. I loved the way that it focused so heavily on scientific exploration and just, exploring the far reaches of space and trying to learn how to communicate with an alien species. I just thought it was so much fun, and the 2 main characters were just so well written and so approachable. I highly recommend Project Hail Mary to anyone. I've also read The Martian by Andy Weir, which I also think is a good book, but I don't know as I would say that everybody should read it. But if you want to, it's a great book to read. But I think Project Hail Mary is the better book of the 2. So definitely recommend Project Hail Mary. Another book on my list is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is still the first and only book I have read by Blake Crouch, but I had such a blast reading that book. And if you like exploring the possibilities of dimensional travel and string theory and multiverses and all that stuff, I think you would definitely like Dark Matter. And it's just a really fun, quick read. It's action-packed, it's engaging, and Apple TV has a new series based on the book, which I need to go watch. And I just can't wait to do that and then compare it to the book and what I remember about the book. So I'm excited about that, but I highly recommend that you read Dark Matter. It's a fantastic book. And the final book on this list that I'm going to talk about is Meddling Kids by Edgar Quintero. This book never gets talked about on BookTube, guys, except by me. I've mentioned it a few times. I did a review on it the first time I read it. So if you want to watch that review, I'll leave a link to it at the cards at the end of the video. But this is a grown-up book for fans of Scooby-Doo. This features a ragtag group of adults who at one point in time were teenagers and they were solving crimes together, and they have a dog as well, and now they're all grown up, and one of their cases is coming back to haunt them, and they need to figure out who is behind everything that is happening and why this case is pushing to be opened back up. It is just so much fun, and the allusions to Scooby-Doo are all over the place, guys, but with a Lovecraftian twist. And you can probably see the tentacles on the cover and everything like that. It's just, this book is so good. It was recommended to me by a bookseller at Barnes & Noble, and I'm just so glad that they recommended it to me because it's one of my favorite books. It's definitely rereadable. Like, I want to reread it sooner rather than later. So yes, highly recommended by me. If you take one book from this list, I think you should pick this one. Give it a shot, guys. It's so unique and different, and it's very nostalgic, especially if you enjoyed the Scooby-Doo cartoon as a kid. So much nostalgia. So that is my list of 13 books. And, you know, maybe I talked about Dracula a little bit as well, so I kind of cheated there. And, you know, I talked about my book as well, so I kind of cheated again. So if you count those, it's probably 15, but let's just go with 13. You know, this was something that I really wanted to talk about and share with all of you guys. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this list of 13 standalone novels. Let me know what some of your recommendations are as well, and let me know also if you've read any of these. I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. And until next time, guys, make sure you're reading more books, and I will talk to you very soon. I want to take this opportunity to shout out my patrons. I really appreciate all you guys do to support me and to support the channel. Thank you so much.